We're talking about how to start an LLC in West Virginia. And what you can see behind me here is a checklist that we're going to be going through. And we're actually going to be going through the checklist of starting your LLC right here. But before we get to that, I wanted to talk about how to avoid the LLC dumpster fire. Now, what that is you get your LLC set up and you're not familiar with terms such as piercing the corporate veil, commingling funds, registered agent, and pass-through taxation. Now, if you're not familiar with those terms or things such as after LLC formation, there's how the LLC renewal process works or business licenses and permits. These are the types of things when people aren't educated on this, they make mistakes and it can cost them tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees down the road. So what we're going to do in this video is we're actually going to zoom out first. We're going to talk about what an LLC does for your business so that we can zoom in on this process and then get your LLC set up correctly. Now, what you see here in this drop down here is the two things that we're going to talk about. The LLC offers limited liability protection and pass-through taxation. Let's explain that through the example of owning a coffee shop without an LLC first. What you have here is you have the business owner here in the center, but they have their personal home, car, and bank account on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, you have their business bank account, point of sale, the physical location, the espresso machine, the lights. All this is directly tied back to this business owner in the center here. This is a bad idea. This is a lot of potential liability. Now, we can look at an example of owning an LLC that owns the coffee shop. What does that look like? Well, now what we have is the business owner on the left-hand side here. They have their personal assets. And on the right-hand side, we have Acme Coffee LLC, we're calling it, and all those assets are underneath that LLC. The important thing here to note is the red line in the middle. That red line is something called the corporate veil. Now, you may recall at the beginning of the video, we talked about something called piercing the corporate veil. We're going to explain that right now through the concept of commingling funds. Let's say you get your business set up and you get your LLC set up, but you don't set up a business bank account right away. You end up running business transactions through this personal bank account over here. Now, let's say hypothetically that somebody were to be injured at the coffee shop and they sue you. The attorney suing you is going to try to find cracks in your LLC. If they discover that you've been commingling funds and they present that evidence to a judge and the judge agrees with them, they may grant them permission to pierce the corporate veil. What that is this division between your business and personal assets dissolves, and then they can come after not only your business assets, but your personal assets as well. So your personal car, home, and bank account. That's why it's so important to set up the LLC, but also to do it properly. So the takeaway here is to make sure you get a business bank account set up as soon as possible when you get your LLC set up. Next, what I want to talk about is explaining pass-through taxation. The IRS is not taxing your business, not taxing the Acme Coffee LLC. What ends up happening here is in this example, let's say you grossed $140,000, you had expenses of $90,000, and a net income of $50,000. That $50,000 in net income passes through to your personal tax return. Another way of saying this is flow-through taxation. You will hear it referred to both ways, so just know pass-through, flow-through taxation, same thing. Just wanted you to be aware of this. This is actually one of the benefits of the LLC is it's much simpler to manage the tax time. You're not going to have like separate K1s, they're called, K1 filings for a C corporation, S corporation kind of deal. But the cool thing about an LLC is it's very flexible as well. There's a little note down here and it talks about that in the future. You can apply something called an S Corp designation to reduce your tax burden. This is where you still have the LLC, but it's taxed as an S corporation. This comes into play when you start earning around $40,000 to $50,000 in net income, and we're going to be talking about that in the third video in this series. This is a playlist, and I highly advise you go through all of it because it's not just about getting your LLC set up and doing it correctly. It's also about how can you save on taxes in the future and optimize your LLC for yourself so you know these things today so you know what to look for down the road. Now, what I want to talk about is the checklist to start your LLC. Well, first step is you can get this checklist for yourself. There's going to be a QR code on the screen right now that you can scan. There's also a link in the description below that makes it easy for you to get this. The reason you want to get this is not just the checklist. There's also, a glossary of terms down here. And what I'd recommend is watching this video on LLC scams. I've seen people, fall victim to these and lose out on a couple $100s that they didn't have to spend. But even cooler than that is there is a bonuses section here. There's an AI chatbot here, and this is something where you can one-click this. How do I register an EIN? We're going to actually explain that in this video, but you can also do stuff like how to set up an LLC in West Virginia. So this is something where this chatbot pulls resources and will be able to put together a detailed, specific list to your state. or if you need to brainstorm LLC names. This is just like ChatGPT. You can put in information here and use this for yourself as you're setting up your LLC. There's a free charitable opportunity in here if you want to donate $20 to charity when you're getting your LLC set up. There's a yearly accounting calendar. We're going to break that down in the third video, and free CPA advice and future tax savings. All right, so this is going to be much more comprehensive than what you were thinking getting into this video. But again, I want to make sure that you're properly set up, not for today, but also for the future as well. Now, when you're getting your LLC set up, you have to decide which path you want to go. You can go through the state website, you can go through online legal tools, and you can also go through a business attorney. The business attorney is going to be by far the most expensive route, $1,000, $2,000. Online legal tools, most of them now have a $0 plus state fee package, but there are a lot of upsells. And then you can go through the state website, which has its pros and cons as well. Pros being is very cheap. Cons is that there's not a lot of features to help you out as you go through the process, which we're going to explain here in a minute. But for the sake of this video, we're going to go through the state website. What you need to do is you need to decide on an LLC name. What you need to know here is you need a unique name. It cannot be one that's already taken in the state, but also it doesn't have to be the perfect name. Now, Acme Coffee LLC, terrible name for a coffee shop, right? But if you wanted the name to be something like Espresso Yourself Cafe, you could do that through something called a DBA, which is a doing business as, or sometimes is referred to as a fictitious name. So you can have in the future a brand name within that LLC with a DBA or fictitious name. So don't put a lot of pressure on yourself to have the perfect LLC name. But then what you need to do once you come up with it is you can go to the state directory list here. We're going to go down to West Virginia. And then what we're going to do is we're going to search for the organization's name. So let's say that you go with Mountaineers, and we search this. Now, of course, what you see here is a bunch of different businesses named Mountaineers. But if I were to just jam out on this keyboard, and this is the state database right here that we're searching, now what you can see is there's no results found. It's kind of small over here on the side, but that's what you're looking for, is no results found for the LLC name that you're looking for within the state of West Virginia. And then once you have that, what you can do now is form your LLC. I mentioned this first step, registering your LLC name. The reason I mention this is sometimes people will register an LLC name and they think they're done. That's not the case. This is like buying a domain name and thinking you have a website now. What you need to do is you have to file your articles of organization. So to write your articles of organization, again, we're going to go back to the state directory list here. These bullet points, they kind of cover this in good detail of what you need to do on the articles of organization. But I'd like to actually take a look at West Virginia and go through the specifics of it. So what we have here is an articles of organization, and up here you can see a filing fee of $150. So when you file your articles of organization, it'll be that $150 fee. There's no way of getting around that. You're going to pay that whether you go through the state site, the online tools, or an attorney. All right. First step here is you name the the limited liability company in the state or country of organization. And then the business name to be used in West Virginia will be, and the name must contain at least one of the required terms. So you have to do LLC within the name, all right? And this is where it's talking about a DBA name. If you have that in mind, you can actually do that now if you'd like. A lot of times too, people just make the name what they want it to be for the LLC. Right here, regular LLC, series LLC, professional LLC. In the next video in this series, we get into what a series LLC is. That could be helpful if you're actually owning real estate with the LLC. The address of the principal office of the company will be, all right, so that's just the address. And then the address of the initial designated office of the company, located in the county of. All right, now, as you go through this, one thing I wanted to talk about here is the agent of process. This is something that confuses people. So usually this is referred to as a registered agent. In West Virginia, it's called the agent of process. And the reason it's called that is, let's say that the coffee shop, somebody gets injured and you're being sued. You're going to get a service of process notice. Now, what a registered agent or an agent of process does is they handle the important communication and documentation for your business or this third party. So they're going to get that notice that you're required to show up to court, and they're going to make sure that you show up to court with all the proper information. Now, what you need to know is that this person, they have to have a physical mailing address within the state of West Virginia, and it cannot be a P.O. box, all right? Now, the bummer of going through the state website is they don't really give you a lot of context or information on that. What I would say is a lot of times these online legal tools, they partner with these services that can provide this agent of process for you. One of them in particular actually provides it for free for the first year. But just know that that is what is required here, and it is legally required that you have one on file and maintain it. Email address, website address, if applicable. Do you own or operate more than one business in West Virginia? Most of these are pretty easy to understand. One of them, though, is member managed versus manager managed. Member managed is when you're like a solopreneur and you're the operator of this business. Manager managed is when you own the LLC, but other people are actually running that business. That's what it's asking for there. So then they ask for the names of the members and managers, and then all the specified members of the limited liability, purposes for this company, and then will the above purpose include any of these business activities such as consumer litigation? So it's getting into the weeds a little bit. Scrap metal dealer. So it gets really into the details here, but all of this is pretty easy to understand. They have a section here for veteran-owned businesses. So then once you're ready, you can fill out your information here and you can sign this and then send it into the state. Now, again, you're gonna have to pay that $150 filing fee as well. This is if you were to do the physical mailer option. You can go through the state website and create an account and do it online as well. Now, once you actually go through this process and you sign the registered agent, you file your articles of organization. Next, what you do is create and sign an LLC operating agreement. This is not required in the state of West Virginia to set up your LLC, but it's a really good idea. Let's say that we have an example of the coffee shop and you have a business partner and you end up having 12 locations. What do you do if that business partner wants to exit the business one day? Well, if you haven't spelled this out in an LLC operating agreement, what's going to happen is you're probably going to have a lengthy legal battle, and it's going to be very expensive and frustrating trying to figure out what this person is owed. An LLC operating agreement will tell you who the managers and members of the LLC are, what are their roles and responsibilities, but also things such as like what happens if somebody wants to exit the business. That's why it's really helpful. It's one of those situations where an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So very helpful thing to consider there as well. Next, what you want to do after LLC formation is to set up an EIN. Before we get to that, though, I do want to make mention, the state website isn't going to help you with an operating agreement. If you go through the online legal tools, most of them have boilerplate templates you can use, and then a business attorney can really dial it in for you, but it's going to be the most expensive route, but I just wanted to make you aware of that. Next, with the EIN, there's an IRS link here. And what this is it's an employer identification number. It's like a social security number for your business. And basically it's a way for the IRS to identify your business. And if you're gonna have staff on payroll, you have to have an EIN to do that. Also, if you're applying for like an office space or a business loan, they may ask for your social security number or your EIN. It looks a lot more professional if you have that EIN number already. Sometimes you'll see TIN or EIN. Those can be used interchangeably. Just know that because you're gonna be filling out forms in the future for your business. But you can set this up for free yourself with this link right here. Or if you go through those online legal tools, usually in their mid-tier package, they include that for free. Well, not free, the mid-tier package is an upsell, but they'll set up your EIN for you as well. Now, the thing I want to talk about next here is obtaining the business licenses and permits for your LLC. What I'd like to do is talk about an example of owning a brewery. Now, you're going to be brewing beer, distributing beer, and potentially serving beer on premise. Those three things all require or could require different licenses and permits, and they can happen on the federal level, the state level, and the local level. Now, I picked a business that has a lot of licenses and permits attached to it. Not every business is going to have things required for them. But on the local level, what you can do is find your town clerk or city clerk, give them a call and just say, hey, I'm starting this type of business. I'm just curious, like what types of things, licenses and permits are maybe required for this type of business. And you can also just like, maybe you have a physical location, you're going to put a sign on it. Like that may require a license or a permit, right? So these are things that you want to talk about on the local level, and then it can happen on the county level as well. They may be able to direct you on that as well. You can also search for like on the state level, like West Virginia business licenses and permits. It'll take you to the state website and then you can go through there. Same thing on the federal level as well. Next, what we're going to talk about is what we're going to be getting into in the next video. We're going to be talking about the different options for LLC formation, really deep diving here. Because I can't stress this enough, I've seen people overpay by $1,500 when they go the wrong route here. So what we have here is we actually have an LLC cost calculator that we're going to be getting into. It shows you down to the dollar what it costs to own an LLC for the first 5 years. And that's where you'll see that some services overcharge quite a bit there. We're also going to get into these star ratings and comparing where these star ratings come from. We're going to talk about why state websites become a pain, and it has to do with domestic versus foreign LLCs. And then what we're going to look at is questions worth asking about which path you should go when you're getting your LLC set up. Again, I highly recommend you get this free checklist for yourself. There's so many good resources on here for you for not only starting your LLC, but maintaining it. And then once you have this checklist, and it's free to get with the link in the description below, what we're going to do is we're going to walk through it further in this next video on the screen. So we're going to catch you in the next video and make sure that you don't overspend when you're getting your LLC set up. All right, we'll catch you in the next video.